Hello, this is a standalone video that goes in the series of exposing what is really behind the scenes um, after this life, or whether you want to call it heaven, ET, or whatever it is. It's a standalone video. The series that I made should be watched first. If you just jump into this one, you won't have the proper background. You'll be lost. It won't really have the effect it needs to. There's a lot of study involved for anybody that's going to really understand the details and the intricacies of what is really going on. Most people don't. Most people don't want to know. They say they want to know, but when it comes down to work about understanding moral principles and trying to look for the clues and signs and things that are there, they just don't want to know. Or they aren't prepared to do what it takes to really understand everything. So anyway, this is a standalone video, and basically the title of it, the topic it covers, is In Defense of Evil. The reasons for evil in this world, and the reasons why it's so difficult to remove. I'm also going over some pretty major concerns that I have with the other side, with the leadership of our eternal society. The leadership I have of our eternal society. And concerns I have with the direction that this supposed millennium or 1,000 years of peace is going to bring. I have deep concerns. So, getting started, basically. The whole point of education and growing and as individuals, growth as individuals and growth as a society is to be better, smarter, stronger, morally more capable, logically better understanding of the depth of emotion that takes place, so that we all get along better, less war, more peace, and more things that really blow our mind with experiences, good experiences. It isn't just a matter of, okay, let's everybody get onto a huge set of rules here. Good, ultimately, in the long run, is not just everybody be a robot and follow the rules, period, so that we don't destroy ourselves. Morality needs to take into account everything that could destroy itself, but it also needs to take into account that we need to be people that love, live, have passions, and have very deep reasons for wanting to live, not just for a few years, but indefinitely. And that's very hard to do in a long, long term. Now, if you remember back to the initial time just after the leap, just after we found our way into the eternities, into a spot where technologically we could be self-sustaining and not have death, at least technologically speaking. If you remember the massive disasters that happened afterwards in the trial by fire, because we weren't emotionally, mentally, we weren't morally prepared for it. We had no idea the psychological pressures and the moral pressures, that everything that would add up in such a very long-term life. Those disasters were because of bad stuff people started doing. It just compounded on itself. I mean, you take drinking and drugs, for example. You have the excuse of, with digital drugs, that it doesn't leave any after effects. It doesn't harm the body. There is no health concern afterwards. It's just a high. But over the many, many, many years, it leads to a lifestyle that was not compatible with life in the very, very long term. I know many of you will, no matter what I say, just not believe me. You'll have to wait and watch the tapes and watch the data of what really happened back in those days to see why that didn't work. But that's beside the point. The point is, it was the evils, the murders, the drugs, the craziness that crept back in that led to so many deaths. And then, even now, you think, well, why do we still have all this stuff? Well, it's simple. It's part of the genome. The genome itself makes us crave certain things. And it's a really complicated process. And of course, we're not just slaves to our genome. There's history, there's education, there's individual choice. But as I've explained a number of times in other videos, those choices are based on what information we have available. Our genetics directly influence our decisions based upon the lusts and the desires that we immediately have right now, but they're also based upon the collective experiences that we have as a culture, wanting to fit in well with the peer pressure among us, the collective effects that hormones have on our society and on the peer pressure for the long term. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. So the long and the short of it is, whether you blame it on genetics, whether you blame it on education or whatnot, people have a tendency to do the worst things imaginable. Not everybody, not every time, but enough of them do that it will destabilize society and create massive upheavals that affect literally everybody in society. And there needs to be a way to stop that and not lose so many kids along the way. We can't just, we could just cut off every kid that was born that just decides to live a lifestyle that's dangerous. I mean, we certainly could do that, but we don't want to. I mean, for obvious reasons. When you can save people and have them, let them have a compromise of what they want, as long as it fits in with a lifestyle that doesn't threaten others, then yeah, train them. Even if it takes 1,000 years, train them. And so in that context, the evil in this world is basically used as an outlet to give us experience. Basically, we need to get down here, do what we want to do, have some freedom, and yeah, freedom to make mistakes before we're eventually corralled, taught better, and then later on have the epiphanies and understanding that brings wisdom and a willingness to self-control ourselves over the long term so that we don't have these societal problems. But getting into it, like I said, it's the case for evil, the defense of evil. There's major things wrong with our society still. There's big questions that are still being asked, even in today, in those the main part of our society, in certain really influential places. And essentially it comes down to how much bad is good for the development and how much bad is just bad. I mean, when we initially started this whole experiment with sending kids down to this earth, basically just sending the essence of a person into the body of one of these earthlings, basically sending the soul into this body. The idea was that they would get a couple bumps and bruises along the way, but mainly just, they'd get along, do decent stuff, make some mistakes here and there, and then come up and then be all the wiser for it, and there you go. Supposedly, the idea was not to have them commit mass murder. The idea was not supposedly to have them commit infanticide and have them rape, pillage, and the youngest and the most vulnerable amongst all society. I mean, there's some seriously bad things that are going on. There's people that have tried numerous times to destroy the main part of society with nuclear weapons and biological weapons, other types of weapons. I mean, if you just have to look through some YouTube videos, you'll get some idea of some of the evil that's out there. I'm not going to go through all of it, but whatever you see on YouTube, it is not anything compared to what really is going on. There's a lot of serious stuff that is hidden right now, and it's very well hidden. It is being documented, and eventually you'll be able to get some of the data for yourself once you're old enough. But for right now, this type of bad was not planned, supposedly. I say supposedly because I never know what they're telling the truth or not. They're very good at lying, and that's what they do all the time. They even lie to the people up there that are in the councils, the part of the leadership that's the experienced part, the part that you have to live for a long time to get to. They lie to them even, or give them half truths. It's of course telling the truth, just not telling all of it, such that these major gaps would obviously change much of the policy of what's going on. If more people knew, it would raise the ire of everybody and create change that some higher ups just don't want. So getting back to the point, how much bad is bad and how much bad is good? When sending a kid down here, you ask yourself not about necessarily what experience is going to make them warm and fuzzy coming home and liking you. You think about, in the very, very long term, since it's the only time they will ever have this experience, what do they need to go through to have a firm knowledge base to teach them how to not just do okay stuff, but how to be leaders in society, how to, for an eternity, never forget the importance of doing the right thing rather than doing the wrong thing, doing the things that stabilize society rather than destabilize it. And very importantly, how would they recognize it if it's coming up? Those that have been through the worst can sometimes just sense things going on just because they've seen it so many times that their mind puts together so quickly that in itself is a very secure thing. They can see and feel dangers coming up long before people that hadn't gone through that. And they, having been through the worst of the worst, then come out of it, would be that much more hesitant to not get in it in the first place again. So basically, the ideals of having this nice little society where everybody was equal, which we did have some of them way back in the day, not really, you're not going to hear much about it, but that crashed and burned. And it didn't crash and burn because of the main part of society wanting it to. It did because the leaders of the society down there, or down here on this earth, wanted power and control. They wanted to not be fair. They wanted to make it a mess. Now, you can't get away from it if you search for enough videos from the point of view of the elite. And there's various derivations of it, but essentially one of the arguments they have here is that they were placed here to torture and torment all of the rest of us, and then afterwards everyone's just going to get along. It's their job to just basically be bad so that it can help teach us, help us go through experiences. And there are, in a twisted way, some truths to that, sort of, if you twist it a little bit and sort of squint out of one eye and look sort of cross-eyed. Um, but the reality behind it is, no, that was not intended, at least as the public thing that's been given out for the main part of society to understand is, no, that wasn't intended. It was a direct result of the fact that the leadership just plain didn't work with us. They worked against us every chance that they had. They were offered the world and they didn't take it. They were offered technology. They were offered medicine. They were offered better ways of life for everybody, and they didn't take it. And they flat out refused it because it came along with conditions of equality. Now, these elite leaders were, they're a pain in the butt, basically. They were a pain in the butt, and they just did whatever they wanted. And then trying to get rid of them, like I said earlier, it's like whack-a-mole. They keep popping up here and there. As soon as one person gets out, it creates a power vacuum, and then you have 2, 3, 4, 5 wanting to take their place. Sometimes stability with a known evil really was better than the instability and power vacuums that it can create. And with some great planning and great investing of time, you can get one society running okay, and then you go to the next, and then the first society starts going bad again. I mean, it really was whack-a-mole. It didn't work out. That's the truth behind what the elite were like. They were not intended to be these people that just torment us as a part of how the system works. However, you have to remember that it is a complicated thing running a society. There's lots of viewpoints. There's lots of people running it. There's great differences of opinion between all of the different council members and the different parents and members of the community up there. When it comes down to it, even though this was not supposedly planned, the elites did start falling into a role that was useful. Now, the whole drop and bop method of education is basically you drop the kids down here, they do whatever they want, create a big mess, and then you start to clean up everything afterwards once they're on back home. Oversimplified, yes, but essentially this gives them the ability to come down, make whatever decisions they want, and then you just then afterwards teach them about what decisions they did make and show them why it didn't work out all that well for them. I mean, simple and effective. The problem, again, is just once you get a bunch of people with a bunch of different wills, you get people doing things to others that take away everyone else's rights. And that's part of the system. You can't have that type of freedom without taking away others' freedom. And in this type of freedom, the strongest are the ones that have the freedom, and the weaker are the ones, the gentler ones, the ones without. And so the role that the elite played did end up morphing into a version of the type of argument that they will give you. They did have a role. Their role was to predictably keep society going with a certain amount of bad so that things would stay balanced. But, I mean, the thing is, of course, nobody just really wanted to say, hey, do bad stuff. But the reality is the genome and the elite were so bad that you had to manage it. You had to manage going forward about how much would we be able to cut out, and what bad would just be unavoidable. How much would you just stop? I mean, like, if you tried to eliminate a certain amount, it's just going to blow up in other ways. They're just going to go and do whatever they want despite you. So, I mean, it became a delicate balance of managing elite to control the experiences for everybody. They were able to make an umbrella of protection over people down here in that they're basically fooled into believing they're free. If you're fooled into believing you're free, you do have an element of freedom. And this is a whole confusing thing. I know I'm rambling on, and it's just hard to understand, and there's a lot of different things that could take centuries to delve into properly. But the long and the short of it is, first step, elites were a problem. And we tried everything we could to get rid of them to have a decent experience for everyone. Second step was, well, they're bad, but at least we're starting to be able to get predictability and keep them within certain boundaries. Now that we can keep them within certain boundaries, there are certain goals that you can then start to implement, like getting Christianity started and getting a morality going, because you can predict them, you can control them to a certain extent, you can start getting things implemented slowly. And the whole thing of them believing that they're put here to just torment everybody, now, I mean, of course it's not true, but one way or another, that's the role that they play. It's to torment everybody. It's not the role we want them for, but ideally it would be nice if they just got along with everyone, but they don't, and so it's better them that are somewhat controllable rather than the power vacuum and the whack-a-mole type stuff that comes out when you take it out. Now, my concerns are that going forward, we now have the ability to perfect genetics and education to a point where that original idea of a peaceful and equal society is now possible. Frankly, it is possible now. We know how to do it. We don't have every single answer to it, but we have a really, really very, very good preparation for it. We have large middle classes with lots of history that's being built up throughout the U.S., Canada, Europe, different places throughout the world that wants equality, expects equality, and wants things just to work differently. They don't expect that mass murder will be a part of their experience. And that is a good thing for the future. This is what enables the 1,000 years of peace, is that type of expectation that life will be like a certain thing. And so middle class America, or at least the idea of what people believe middle class America is, even if it's a lie right now, that's the hopes and dreams of the millennium of peace. It's to make that dream a reality. And it's not a perfect utopia by any means, but the absolute worst of the worst would be taken out, the elites taken out, the unending wars taken out, the really bad genetics taken out. However, this is the debate. The debate in a nutshell is between the people who want that type of experiences and the people that feel that some war and depravity is absolutely needed. There are absolutely people up there in leadership who believe that wholeheartedly, that war is a part of our experience. You look at the history of the entire human population, in any world you look at, war is a huge part of it. And their point of view is of course that when it's that prevalent in every single society, every single place, anywhere, anytime, you have to have people that deeply understand it. No matter the cost, you have to have your kids go through those types of traumatic experiences so that when you pick the pieces up, they won't want to do it again, and yet they'll have the ability to deal with it if needed. What happens if our society destabilizes? What happens if there's another society that we come across? It's very likely to be warlike with what we've seen out of the genetics so far that comes naturally out of Mother Nature. And so one of the doubts for the millennium to be war-free is because of this type of thinking. I'm trying to present it as fairly as possible. It's just that war's always been a part of us. It's always going to be a concern, no matter what happens. It's going to be something that's in the back of our minds at the very least, if not in the forefront. And one of the things about the elite is that the elite are able to be controlled to enough of an extent to where the wars will be able to be contained in specific parts of the world, so that you can have parents decide where they want to get their kids sent to the good parts, the bad parts, how much of depravity do you think it should be a part of your kid's education down here. But ultimately, I mean, many of you might think, as I do, that's just stupid. I mean, yeah, I understand. And it's eternity. No matter how bad of a thing you go through down here, eventually you can pick up the pieces. But when you look at the point of view, the war has always been a part of our society from recorded history and beyond, because this is how our society has always been. Our genetics, our education, our political structures, our expectations, everything has always been including that as an expectation, as something that certain people wanted to have. It was a necessity for some. But when you're going forward, it's not an expectation for, I would say the main body of civilized middle class. It's something that they expect it because that's what happens, but it's something that by and large to them and the people around them, you would never have just one town just expecting to go to battle with another town right next to it. That would sound absurd. I mean, you look at the TV show Jericho, it's about like nuclear explosions throughout the United States, and you could see how quickly it would be realistically possible for the United States to have one city start to wage war against another one. You take it backwards in technology and resources a few hundred years, and boom, suddenly every little town along the highway becomes like a mini kingdom, fiefdom, or whatever you want to call it, and they're literally at war over resources with everybody else. The thing is, advancements in technology, advancements in education, advancements in genetics all play a role. And you'd ask, what would be the point of sending your kid down here to get smacked over the head over and over again with things of that nature? I mean, yeah, it's easy to make fun of the kids the parents that want gentler experience for their kids. I mean, it's easy to make fun of. I've heard the lines myself. They want to just have the worst of the experiences be, Bill made fun of me and my feelings are hurt. I mean, come on. I've heard respectable, quote unquote respectable people that are council level people giving those arguments and giving that pretty much same exact spiel. Billy, you hurt my feelings, and I just can't take that. I mean, having that be the worst of experiences? No, this is why we do Drop and Bop. They need to have real experiences, meat and potatoes, stuff that really you can dig at for the next while. I mean, okay, I get that, but what I don't agree with is down to, you look at the details of it, and you're making light of the experiences of middle class America. If you take people that haven't been in war, that haven't been directly touched by it, and they won't say their life is easy. They won't necessarily. They might say they have a good life. They might really like it, but they'll, after it's all done, have a lot of things that they can look back at and really feel proud that they learned. And it's not just, Billy made fun of me, or Jill made fun of me, or whoever. it's a depth and complexity of things that weren't possible in other lifestyles. I mean, you take to the extreme, you go back to that type of an existence that we had before this. If you didn't have this safety bubble, I mean, you could say, oh, yeah, well, this life isn't like it was 1,000 years ago. Well, yeah, it's not. But look at Jericho. It certainly would be if we didn't keep it protected. And the thing is, you look at experiences like that when it's literally life and death is what you're thinking. And type of honor you get would be the honor to lay down your life for others, and that's a very, very big sacrifice. But you're lacking the details of what really goes on in middle class America. There's a whole host of stuff that people learn. There's nuances there. There's sacrifices that mean just as much for the people as things that would happen back in that day, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. The depth and complexity of emotion leads to richer experiences. It leads to tailored experiences where kids can now come down and have programs that will, instead of leaving them dropped and bopped and feeling like they're just like PTSD on steroids, they will have an experience that they look back at as one of the most enriching, wonderful experiences of their existence. The lessons they learn there, you take to heart more, not less, because it is the appropriate amount of difficult and the appropriate amount of good. Things designed for the individual, the educational requirements designed for the individual, so the individuals going through that go through quicker, less processing afterwards, more drive to keep fairness in society. I mean, higher test results on any objective thing that you want, because you don't just have a drop and bop random education. You have education that's not completely designed, but very much designed for every individual that's coming down. You have the potential for doing that. And are we there completely yet? No, absolutely not. It is still very random. But still, the idea remains. There still, in the certain courts, there are still people clamoring, demanding, rebelling, so that they can get the wars as a part of this millennium that's coming up. Elite as a part of the millennium. They are asking to keep elite in power, not the same ones. They say, oh, we'll switch them out to different ones, just so that we'll be able to have a little bit less, a little bit less of craziness, because of course they're destroying the world now. I mean, we can't have that. But, having unelite, some sort of elite is absolutely something we want. And we want that so that we can make sure that there continues to be wars in selected parts of the world, so that we can have kids dropped and bopped as they need to be, so that they can get the experiences so that we feel is appropriate for them. Fine. You want to drop and bop your kids. If you remember back to the plan about what they were going to supposedly do to split things off, the elite of the world now were supposedly going to be put on their own level for a few different reasons. They were supposedly going to be put on their own level, their own frequency of this earth, so that their experience would be more of a drop and bop. Just put your kids there. If that's what you want, just put your kids there. Fine, there you go. Have fun. We don't need to intentionally keep an elite here that are ruling class that are going to be causing wars just so you can have wars. That's ridiculous. I mean, look at all the people, all the Hitlers, all the crazy, insane nuts that are the mass murderers, and the ones that will coldly and calmly just do literally anything, just as easily as they breathe. Look at them, and how many of them had traumatic childhoods? How many of them had traumatic things that they went through that led them to that point? Not all of them, but quite a lot. I mean, you get a lot of these people, it's that violence itself that was there, present, that turned them into that made it easy for them to do. I mean, yes, it gives you a knowledge of how, and an instinct of how that bad works if you go through it. But there is also a point that, look at PTSD. When you get PTSD, you don't have the ability anymore to relate to the general population the same way that you would have if you didn't have to go through that. People want to have a normal middle class lifestyle and be concerned about the little things that the middle class people are. But for certain people with that hugely traumatic events in their life, normal is not normal anymore. Even if you're not going to go off and do a bunch of crazy bad stuff, it still is something that all of the lessons that you would be learning otherwise, the intricacies of delicate educational processes, just can't happen when you use sledgehammer education. There's quite a lot of beauty and delicacy in the educational system that we've developed. You don't need sledgehammer education in order to teach society now. However, this is what's still there. Now, another question is why? Why would people have this? You go back to the time where they were learning how to deal with the elites effectively for the first time. And at that time, and this is sort of shifting into the more concerns I have. At that time, there were intentional things placed in the genome of certain individuals throughout the society up there that were a little bit more similar to the violent, crazy genome of the elite that they were trying to manipulate. There was a bit too much of a disconnect when they had too much of a gentle genetics, and there were certain things that they just weren't doing as effectively as they'd like. And so some of them did volunteer to sort of regress genetically carefully in certain ways so that they can better able to effectively manipulate and deal with the elites down here, with the richest of the richest, most powerful of the most powerful. And yeah, that was effective. They can wrap them around their finger. They've come up with all sorts of things. They have a whole load of doctrines and of religions and of aliens and of this things and that things that the elites are buying into, and the whole list of things that they have the elites doing to control and manipulate us, so that the elites can, be drooling with power and control and just mouth-watering for all the wonderful things that they can be doing to hurt us. They were effective in dealing with them. However, you can see that this madness down here is certainly, it's not something that can happen long term. They are destroying the earth. There's some out there that say, oh, well, the sea temperatures aren't way too bad. Objectively, this part of our earth is not bad. That one, that's not bad. It can go on for a lot longer than people say. It's not that dramatically bad. Yes, it is dramatically that bad. The behavior itself is the worst part of it. If you would literally have them stop tomorrow and turn everything around, then yeah, you could get the earth back under control but there's also parts to our bodies that long term have already had enough damage to where it's not a long term scenario. There's The damage is going to become more obvious long term. There's no way of stopping that now without having the other side come and heal us. There's just no way. But going back to it, they made the choice to do that. They made the choice to go through regress genetics carefully so that they could be in positions to where they'd be able to have the control they needed to make Christianity. And you talk to the people that have done that, and you say, look at the sacrifice that we made. Without us, it would have been impossible to have the Christianity come forth, because it would have been squashed. It would have been impossible to have the middle class, to have all of these things, because it would have been squashed. They would have been abused. They would have been turned back into the fiefdoms that we have. They're so the main class, middle class is so easy to manipulate that all you have to do is put enough force, enough pressure, take away the basic necessities for enough time, and you will have them clamoring for war. You will have them begging for it, and begging for it with a smile, and very happy to lay down their freedoms just as long as they get to eat. Without the manipulation of the elites, then we would not have progressed to the technological level that we would be at now. The technology wouldn't have been given, and when people try to develop it, it would have been squashed. And so, yeah, they did play a role. However, that role came at a price, and there were other things that maybe could have done instead, such as take out some of the genes for the psychopaths in the elites, tone down the genes instead of regressing ours. Why don't you just improve theirs? That's an idea. Make them just a little bit less nuts, so that you can give them logic and advice like that. Well, that's one idea. They didn't take it because they wanted to make sure that they had the data so that they can prove to all the naysayers that this is unquestionably bad. They wanted a whole mountain of data so that from here on to the eternities, anytime anybody, anywhere, wanted certain aspects of the genome to be dangerous, they could come out with, with unbiased, completely obvious tests there that will unequivocally state that that's not going to happen. That leads to bad every time, eventually, without any exceptions. So it's all a mess. It's all a huge mess. And when you look at the now and what's going to be, what is planned for the millennium? What is planned for this next era of, quote unquote peace? You have one side that wants to bring in people to help us out, heal society, not have war anymore. Yeah, still have finances to worry about, still have, essentially, basically you just take a snapshot of middle America, middle Canada, middle Europe, about what they expect, and you take out the wars in different places, and you have basically that's what the plan would be for the millennium. Not a perfect thing, not a utopia, but something that does not have as much of the extremes. And this is something I think that with what I've seen of the genetics programs, what I've seen of the education programs, this is very doable. And I would be wholeheartedly behind that view of it, because, yeah, you could say you don't have the wars and that types of things that would give you, very useful insights. You still do have simulators afterwards. And you still do have media and movies and things that you can do to remember all of this stuff for people that haven't gone through it. But on the other hand, when you don't have that level of disasters throughout the world, you don't have that level of disasters, there's a delicacy in the educational process that you could then start to reach for. You could start to teach lessons that were never possible when you didn't have the luxury of time and self-reflection. You don't have time to reflect when you're busy with life and death scenarios. And even if you have time, you don't really have the peace of mind to do so. I mean, you just don't. You're not going to just sit back and start thinking about as many things when you're imminently afraid if you're going to die or not. I mean, yeah, you're going to think about a lot of important stuff, but it's not going to be the same stuff as if you had the time and the delicacy of and the luxury of a guided educational process throughout this earth life. I just personally don't think that you need to have all of that. And for those of you that would, okay, that's fine. There's another spot where the elite's going to go that you could have that. But when you also look at it, there's the whole slippery slope argument as well. If you say, yes, we absolutely need some small wars here and there, nothing, of course, that's going to wipe out humanity, but you need to keep that going, then you have to have an elite to keep that going. Because if there aren't some powerful people that you can controlling this, then it would, get out of hand. And you can't have it get out of hand. You have to have it do what you want it to do. And so you have to have the elite. But having the elite, there's the whole slippery slope. What else are they going to be doing? They're people. They're untrained, random whoever's that are there on Earth for the first time. They're not repeats. They're not like, okay, go down 50 times so you can keep being an elite. No, I mean, that's not how it works. People have human emotions, human desires, and when you get people in positions like that with power that are capable of causing wars, then what else are you going to cause? We are trying to get out the massive problem with how bad that they are in secret to kids and to others. I mean, there's a large problem with what they're doing to kids, and it's really sick and it's horrible. It's very well hidden. The Pizzagate thing is just a small hint at what goes on. What goes on is deeper, way deeper than that. The Pizzagate thing, there's a little disinformation in it. It's basically, like names changed to protect the guilty, but it's a small hint about what things go on really behind the scenes. And the thing is, when you have people that are willing to go off and create wars, you're going to have people that are going to be willing to do really bad other stuff. And you're going to have the problem of how much and what are you going to have to do to control them. I mean, look at the types of things that we have to do now to control them. You give them how many races of aliens that are fake? You get them how many power and control schemes that they could do to try to take advantage of us? I mean, there's schemes that they have that you can't number them all. I mean, you just can't. You can go conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy on YouTube, and quite honestly, a lot of them are fake. But there are real ones behind it. And the real ones behind it are so numerous, if you really saw what was going on, that it's ridiculous. They intentionally try to poison our food. Why do you think we have such cheap food? It's because people up there at the highest were convinced that if they do certain things over the long term to decrease our long-term health, that we wouldn't eat as much of their type of food unless they made it cheap. And so they make cheap food, and so that was the goal. Like, we got cheap food. There we go. Eat it up. Yum. What does it matter over the course of 50 years if it makes makes long-term health effects that are going to last to the next generation beyond. Of course, by then we'll fix it. We're going to have people come down and heal them. And then you have the whole thing about chemtrails, weather modification. You have the poisoning of the planet. You have the energy stuff that is intentionally dirty. Things like LFTR reactors, just mothballed on purpose. Now, the free energy types, things like cash, I don't know if that's actually honestly true or not. They don't really get into the specifics of it, but what they do get into is to say, yes, absolutely, there's abundance of energy technologies that would not destroy the planet, that are incredibly self-sustaining, things that you can have indefinitely, that where you don't have to strip the earth and pollute it so badly. You don't have to inject all this bad stuff to get oil out of the ground. You can have things that work with the environment, and they can show us how to do it. But you go to the current elite and you have problem after problem after problem after problem after problem, and it's literally like spinning a whole bunch of plates on sticks. Like, have you seen some of the old timey like Ed Sullivan type or like variety show things? You can occasionally see this, performer that takes a bunch of plates, spins them on top of the stick, and then there's just like a whole bunch of plates they're spinning. I mean, this is essentially how the elite and the other side are working. It's a whole bunch of plots the elites have to destroy the world, while on the other side of it, we're sort of leading them on into taking much longer to destroy things than they would otherwise, and in much more ineffective ways, and ways that can help us out, believe it or not, like spying everybody through your cell phone and through your tablets and your computers. Oh, then at least everybody gets a computer out of the deal with an infrastructure that gets built so that we can have a modern life. That's, you have to sell them on the whole thing about spying on people in order to get that, so do it. And then about the food, have certain really bad long-term health effects that compile generation after generation, that are going to be really nasty in the very long term. Granted, those are the things that you might not be able to see too much on YouTube. There's a lot of hidden stuff with food. But yeah, it's there. It's there in spades. Whether or not there's videos about it. And you get other conspiracy after other conspiracy after other conspiracy after other conspiracy, all designed to do the basic same stuff. Keep them busy, keep them from killing as many people as they otherwise would, while keeping the illusion of freedom for the main lemming that is in middle class, the main sheeple that is in middle class. Keep them sort of blind and stupid so that they don't question it, and they believe that they have a good experience so that they can go up and then keep voting up there to keep that wonderful experience going. And so my question is, with all of what has to go on to keep these rich and powerful snobs, stuck-up jerks in control so that they don't literally wipe everything that everyone's been working for off the map. I mean, if you had a Jericho event, it would wipe out all of our progress. Period. It would be disastrous for the amount of work that's gone on for the middle class. And while those drop and bop parents up there, I'm sure, would love to have that happen. They would say they wouldn't, but I know them enough. They would love to have that happen. The main body of us have been working and working and working to get Christianity coming, to get middle class stuff coming up, to get other types of experiences coming, so that whatever you're doing down here, it can be in a way that's more gentle, that allows for a better, more specific, more custom tailored education that will actually teach you more valuable skills once you get through it. And if you have to cater to these rich, spoiled snobs that want to control and manipulate and cause wars, you're going to have to keep going down the slippery slope so long and so far that it's going to turn. How can you say it's not going to turn back into the same thing it is now? Power wants power, and it doesn't care what it has to do to get it. That's why you have wars. You want to drop and bop like that? There is no self-sustaining drop and bop technique. You know that. Look at any scenario you want to in any simulator we have up on the other side. Come up with a self-sustaining drop and bop type of a thing, where the elites are not going to get too big for their britches and go and do whatever. Give me a self-sustaining type of thing where you can... Yeah, you've had a measure of success doing this and doing that to keep it going for a little bit of time. But we're not trying to make these educational things for our kids go on for just another 1,000 years. We need education that's going to last 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, 200,000 years. And the spinning plates technique of keeping elite there so that they can be managed to do just enough bad but not enough bad is reckless. I'm sorry, it's really, really ridiculously reckless. You plug it through any decently programmed simulator up there and see how long you think it could take before it all goes bad. And then you're going to have to do other corrections. Like you look at the Matrix movies and how it says, well, it's just a Matrix over and over and over again because it was, they're imperfectly designed to just keep doing it. Well, yeah, of course you could do that. And I'm not saying that we won't have to, do periodic restarting of worlds anyway. But when you get elite, you get problems. When you get people that are there intentionally to do bad so that they can get experiences for the sake of experiences, that's reckless. I'm sorry, that is just plain reckless. The only safe alternative is to stay the course with the gentler genetics and have the experiences be what they are. Have the kids come down here. There's going to be goods, there's going to be bads, there's going to be traumatic situations, there's going to be things that pop up. But they're going to be more manageable when you don't intentionally try to put in bad. We've never, in the history of this world, needed to intentionally put in the bad things. And granted, I think that they probably have anyway. But the bad has always been there. It's only been a question of managing it. And now, for the first time ever, you're having having people that are educated, albeit supposedly a smaller group, demanding that we have planned to keep an elite and powerful in there so that they can keep doing what they're doing. And then, in that case, how can you not say that what the elite are currently saying now about how they're put there to torment everyone else, how can you say then that that would not be true? Because that basically would be true at that point, that they would be put there to torment everybody else within certain boundaries. It's reckless. It's reckless, and I don't care for that. And going back to another concern I have is, if you haven't guessed it by now, I do not trust the leadership on the other side. I just don't trust them. I know more than any one of you out there, most likely, about what really goes on behind the scenes. You might think I'm a crazy nut if you're here, but there are people over there listening, and honestly, I know more than anyone that I know about down here about how it works there. And I don't trust your leaders as far as I can throw a safe. And the reason why, well, I think you can know a lot of reasons why. If you're on the other side listening to this, and it's been my assurances that there are several that are going to be able to have access to this, then you'll know some of the types of things that has intentionally gone on down here that have not been in my best interest or my family's best interest here or on the other side. I mean, there's serious things that I question our leadership about. Frankly, if we have a reasonable plan for genetics, a reasonable plan for education, we have documented successes, we have a history of creating a middle class that actually works, then how in the world are we still fighting against it? And how in the world is it that because of politics, it's questionable what, even at this point, what is really going to happen in this 1,000 years of peace? Well, it's not 1,000 years. I mean, the plan is to just change how it works and just go on indefinitely like that. But how in the world can we do anything if our most successful educational test programs are stopped because the people that don't want to have peace just stop them because through some political shenanigans up there? How can we have it where voting blocks of people can wreak havoc with getting approvals done? How can we have it when political stunts can be done to manipulate how long it takes to approve and wrap up these programs, so it basically messes up the data that you get? I mean, you care nothing about what the individuals are going through who are in those educational test programs. And all of the main group of y'all that are in the voting are just horribly ignorant. I'm sorry, but you're horribly ignorant to all of the shenanigans that were being pulled on you. Yeah, I understand it's peaceful there. I understand how much hormones they put you through so that you just love everybody. But, you know, come on. When they're intentionally manipulating programs that are not theirs so that they can make this great successes that were happening in these educational test programs not really effectively implemented. And I'm sorry, I'm sure I've lost it for you, for any one or two of you from down here that are listening to it, but this is not for you down here. It's for the people up there that are listening. I mean, come on. You know how to run test programs. You know how to run a council. You know how to run leadership so that you can have fair votes and not have people trying to game the rules for their own benefit. At this advanced point in our society, we shouldn't be trying to game the rules to just use the letter of the law and try to get around what was intended just by how things were worded. I mean, you can see now some of the consequences up there that have happened because of that. And so going back to hopefully down here, what can relate to people down here again is, once any of you down here get into the advanced leadership up there, understand they're not going to be telling you the whole truth willingly. They're going to leave some parts out that just wouldn't be convenient. And there are others going to be trying to rig the votes to their own benefit with voting blocks. And hopefully by the time you get there, this will all be a thing of the past, because I'm working really hard to try to make that a thing of the past. Some of these really bad practices that are left over from long time ago need to still be swept away so that we have a much more in touch, much more lean and mean system of voting up there that gets through the mountains of data that we have more effectively. I mean, and both for the people down here and up there, look at it this way. We are trying to go not just for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 200, but for a very, very long time. We are not trying to just go for what the numbers we have. As big as it is right now, this is still all that, can go on basically one system. Granted, there's a lot of artificial levels of Earth now. There's quite a lot of people now that are in leadership, and a ton more that are on their way. But the numbers that we're going to have, if we're successful, would be enough not just to fill up systems like this, but how many star systems can we fill up? How many solar systems can we fill up? You know, 2, 5, 10, 50, 100, 1,000? I mean, you keep going and the growth gets more exponential as you go along. And the types of demands of leadership at that level needs to be something to where every single place, every single time we can go through leadership and the data collection and analysis processes with the decision-making processes consistent, reliable, fair, things that anyone's voice can be heard in coming up with ideas, but that these ideas fairly get processed, implemented, analyzed, and decisions made in very efficient and very, very good ways to where we won't have people that are just wronged. I mean, the type of advanced leadership processing and organization that's going to take when you get to that theoretical spot is tremendous. It's things that never have been done yet. Now, the whole argument of those naysayers that want to have those types of drop and bop stuff, they do not think that our type of experience is something that takes their humanity into account. They think that they say, oh, well, it makes us too much like clones and that we don't really have any free choice. I want to be able to have passions in my life. I want to be able to do things. I don't want to say be disallowed from even being able to play team sports, for example. Yeah, I understand what you're speaking about. I understand it very well, but look at it from my point of view. Everything about what you're saying is freedoms for you is abuse for me. Your freedom to tell me where to go and how to get there, your freedom to step on my face, your freedom to make it feel alive is nothing but abuse to me. A freedom to, I mean, the thing is, the true passions only come out when you have an environment where the gentle is not afraid that it will get squished. A flower is beautiful and it's delicate. The types of things that in the drama, the modern dramas, the arts, music, these are things that come out of the ability to share stuff that you never would share if you were afraid that you'd be made fun of, or if you were afraid that people would stomp on you. It cannot survive in a harsh environment like that. Your whole excuse that it would be taking away your humanity and turning us into clones is just absurd. It's absurd on its face, because that type of a thing, you look 2,000 years ago, you look 3,000 years ago on what really happens in environments like what you are wanting. You say, well, that's not what I want. Of course I want a modern thing. No, you want to have your cake and eat it too. I've already gone through the reasons why an elite is not manageable. But you have those types of things that you're looking for. And I'm sorry, there is no current way to do that right now, to keep those types of things, because those types of things that you're looking at are things that hurt me, because you're taking away my rights, making fun of things that I go through, to making the environment where gentle and profound stuff can't come out because of bad environments. Now, in the long term, maybe we will be able to keep studying the genetics and come out with something that is more capable of whatever hypothetical passions you say that you have, that needs to be in the genome, that you just feel that it lacks. Okay, fine, study it, make it, through education, through study, through trials, through testing it out. See, make it work long term. Go ahead. If you find something that can help all of society, then I encourage that. But at this point, the excuse you have for wanting to, quote unquote, live, that's inseparable from wanting to live and not letting others do. I mean, I've lived enough with psychopaths, and I have lived with a psychopath for a very long time. I've been abused, I've been manipulated, I've been tortured mentally, not physically so much, but I mean, yeah, I've been hit. I've been all these things. And the types of things that you're spouting off that you want to have are the exact types of things that the psychopath does too. That's not something that ever will fulfill people. You want to make something that is okay so that it doesn't hurt me and it doesn't hurt the gentle ones, that's sustainable enough to where it doesn't create environments where war is more likely over the long term, then be my guest and have fun with it. Maybe I'll enjoy it too. But until you get something safe, then do not randomly and recklessly just impose stuff that has worked before and is a stopgap into something that is a long-term solution. The elites were never a long-term solution. That was a short-term way of getting from point A to point B until we were able to come up with a sustainable way of education. It was an experiment. And it was something that we did because there was no other choice at the time. You get the people that were murdered. You get the people that were raped in this life. You get the people that went through genocide in this life. And at least when they get to the next one, when you get people that were dehumanized for their whole long lifespan down here and had to take hundreds of years to get their humanity put back, you get those people. And at least right now you can say that we as a society didn't know better and didn't have any realistic other way of doing it. And this really is just an unfortunate side effect of making sure that we wouldn't die as a society, that people wouldn't be lost forever. That at least is an excuse you can make now. But if you make the mistake of intentionally putting something like that into this on a long-term basis, when you know that there's a way around it, I'm sorry, but that is reckless and that is dangerous, and that is something that I will never tolerate. I will never agree with that. You can get something in the long term that to get it through study, get it through data, get that through planning, get that through, you want a slightly more rough way of doing things? I don't agree with that, but, do your research. Get the data on it. Get some things where you know that unequivocally this is something that is sustainable, that will not lead to destruction, that will not lead to things that are grossly inappropriate for the subjects involved, and you get the data for the students as to what would have happened generally, if they were in a more gentle experiences versus what would happen long term if they were in a more rough experience. You get the data, you get the research behind it, you get all the facts involved, and you don't go by as much of what you personally feel that is appropriate just because that's what you went through. Then I will be more keen on listening to y'all. But as of right now, my beef with the other side on the leadership is that you lie like crazy. You say you're going to do something. You give signs that you're going to do something. You give huge, holy, wonderful, very serious, very sacred signs that you have zero intention of following up with. Granted, lots of the Bible, lots of what's going on was not even written by you. It was written by random people down here with some things that you on the other side put here in that book. And the longer you get towards the now, the more and more of it that is actually coming from the other side is actually there. But all in all, I have personally seen how many miracles that long term were questionable at best. I understand that you're not perfect up there. I understand that very well. I understand that it's not something yet that's an exact science. This is things that we're doing much, by the seat of our pants, just sort of when it comes by. But I also know the level of the computer simulations that you have up there. I also understand the level of the bureaucracy that you have up there. What is inexcusable is that this debate is still going on with information that's been asked and answered thousands of times before, and you're just not shutting it down, not based upon logic, reason, or data. You have plenty of data. You're just not shutting it down because you fear the response of the least untrained of you up there. I mean, for those of you still listening down here, not everybody up there went through an Earth education. That Earth education only started, like 7,000 years ago for everybody? I mean, there was between 6 and 10,000 years ago is the time that they really started getting involved. 10,000 years ago is more or less just coming down and observing. But, I mean, not everybody up there in leadership went through this type of training. There was trainings that were not as effective that they went through. But even using that as an excuse, come on. You've had plenty of time, plenty of data, plenty of things that have been asked and answered to where there shouldn't even be a debate anymore. You shouldn't have had to keep certain key pieces of information away from the main voting block that is up there either. Now is the time. You've already supposedly declared that this was the first year of the millennium. You've already declared victory before you had it. The amount of lies and the amount of things that are not right going up there is just, frankly, a lot more than what I would ever agree to before coming into this mess. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I mean, the roles and responsibilities I have, I take seriously. But I didn't know what I was getting into because I didn't know how seriously messed up everybody was. Nobody in my family up there did. We had suspicions, but come on, you've seen some of the stuff that's come out up there in recent years. I expect better. I expect better from the leadership up there. I expect better plans, and I expect to have a chance for this earth to be healed. We all know what happens if it's not. There is one thing that's going to happen, is this world is going to die. Yes, you can restart it, but you shouldn't have to. The elites, the powerful of this world, everything that is going on is leading to one place. You've watched it over and over again with other break-off societies. You've watched it with this place and that group that were even better, with a lot better than what we are right now. You've done how many computer simulations? Every single one of them. If you don't intervene and have something come up, it leads to death. These plates stop spinning. This society stops. We die as a group down here. That's really the only thing that happens if you don't intervene. This is why I've heard nothing from anyone up there, from any side, that expects to have anything, everyone expects to intervene in some way, form, or fashion. But honestly, what I've seen behind the scenes, what I've had to read between the lines out, I've seen a great hesitancy to do anything. The status quo is something that the people that are willing to do whatever it takes up there really like. They like the elite. They like the fact that they can have certain amount of bad that they can throw their kids into. One, because they like the drop and bob method, but two, because they like still having this regressed genetics. They don't want to have to take the newer genetics. And they know that once the reign of peace is coming, that they will be forced to go into the newer, safer genetics because of the risk of war that it has. I know. Down here it sounds all crazy, and up there I'm sure a little bit too. But you can see hopefully some of the bad stuff that's happened. I don't trust you all up there. I don't trust the leadership. What should happen is following the plan to make gentle, safe genetics, education based upon the middle class roles that has become a success down here. And the plan that I heard about bringing the aliens down, or the fake aliens, of this race and that race and the other race to deal with us, to heal us, to bring us forward, I think that that would work. You know, maybe that's not the only thing that could be done, but there's the plan where you had this race of aliens and that race of aliens and another race of aliens all coming down sort of as an intergalactic force for good to help us, help the humanity take its next step into a responsible world. I think that with the middle class as it is now, that's an honest, good leap that could be made. You can make it into a peaceful world that doesn't have as much war, that you can take the elite out and make a leadership that works much better. Granted, I don't have access to any of that simulators, but I think that those of you that do, you've run it with those situations. I think you know how much more stable it is in the long run. Granted, reality isn't what simulators do, but it's enough. It's close enough. You see that it's much more stable than having an elite. So drop this. Drop this whole silliness and craziness and get to a better, more peaceful reality. And my message for all of you that are down here that haven't quite made it up there yet, it's eventually once you get to leadership in a great many years, don't believe they're telling you the truth. Look through the data for yourself. Ask me personally up there. And I will have once eventually I'm up there, have more honest answers for you, and I hopefully won't just sit on them. Until then, talk to you later.